Welcome back to Movie Recaps. Today I will show you a drama film from 2018, titled Lady J. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. In France in 1789, Madame de la Pommeraye is a young widow that doesn't believe in love and thinks married life is not for her. She only believes in friendship, and friendships go sour when you mix them with the pleasures of the flesh. This isn't enough to stop Marquis de Arcas, who wishes to court Pommeraye and is staying in her estate until she accepts to be his. Arcas is a well-known womanizer and Pommeraye knows this, which is why she doesn't believe him when he says she's his actual true love instead of just another passing fling like other lovers from the past. Pommeraye is also visited often by her best friend Lucienne, who brings her all the gossip from the city. Lucienne is worried about Pommeraye because she thinks Arcas is slowly changing into a better man, and Lucienne thinks a man like him will adopt any costume to get what he wants. Pommeraye tells her not to worry, promising she isn't naive. However, the more days she spends with him, the more Pommeraye finds herself enjoying Arcas' company and his philosophical talks. One afternoon, she finally gives in and accepts his advances, thus the two of them become a happy couple living on Pommeraye's estate. When Lucienne visits again, she is nervous about this turn of events, but stays respectful for the sake of her friend's happiness. Pommeraye still wants to know what people are saying about them though, so Lucienne explains people are placing bets on how long it will take them to break up. In other news, Lucienne also tells her about Madame de Jonquières, who has been tricked by a duke into a fake marriage and now she's broke. Both she and her illegitimate teenage daughter had to join a bawdy house to survive. 2 years pass of Pommeraye and Arcas living happily together, although they haven't gotten married yet even if Pommeraye brings the subject up every now and then. One day, Arcas tells Pommeraye that he needs to leave for Paris to take care of some very important business, and Pommeraye doesn't mind because it's only for a few days. However, when Arcas comes back, he tells her about plans to do some big constructions in the city, which will take a big chunk of his time. Since then, Arcas begins neglecting Pommeraye, spending most of his days in Paris, and whenever he comes back, ignoring her in favor of keeping his attention on blueprints and chats with an architect. The next time Lucienne visits and hears about Arcas' projects, she once again worries about Pommeraye being stuck with a libertine that doesn't appreciate her. Pommeraye swears everything is fine, but when Lucienne apologizes for doubting her relationship, Pommeraye feels guilty for lying and confesses how Arcas has been neglecting her. Lucienne isn't surprised to hear this because passions always die after a while, but she gives her friend an important piece of advice. If she wants to know the truth, she needs to talk to Arcas. Later, Pommeraye approaches Arcas and tells him that she feels there isn't love or passion between them anymore, expecting Arcas to deny it and tell her they're just going through a rough patch. However, her plan backfires. Arcas confesses he agrees and he's been feeling like that for a while. He just had been scared to bring the subject up. In his opinion, the best course of action would be to go back to being just friends, and Pommeraye agrees with fake determination. But afterward, she cries her heart out while Lucienne comforts her. As days pass, loneliness makes Pommeraye's heart grow bitter, and she decides to get revenge on Arcas with a very cunning plan. Remembering the story Lucienne had told her, Pommeraye sends her servants to pick up Madame de Jonquières and her daughter Mademoiselle de Jonquières, whose beauty is striking and that makes her perfect for the plan. Pommeraye promises to reward them handsomely if they help her get revenge on Arcas, and they agree. The first step is to get the women out of the bawdy house, meaning Pommeraye rents them an apartment to live in. She also gets them fancy clothes to pretend they're still nobles and gives them a few months to adapt before putting the plan into action. When enough time passes, Pommeraye goes out for a walk with Arcas in the park, where the Jonquières women are also walking by while dressed in black like devout Catholics. Pommeraye pretends to be surprised they're there and invites them to walk with them, chatting with the mother while the daughter silently walks next to Arcas, who can't get his eyes off her. The Jonquières soon need to leave for mass, and as soon as they're gone, Arcas asks Pommeraye about them, proving he's bitten the bait. Pommeraye explains the problems they got into after a duke tricked them, but omits the detail about their courtesan work. Arcas can't believe someone as beautiful as the daughter couldn't find a good husband, so Pommeraye tells him they believe honorable modesty is better than marrying for money. This leaves Arcas with a want for the forbidden, and for the next few days, he's obsessed with finding the Jonquières ladies again, going as far as stopping random women in the park and finally ignoring his projects. Desperate, he ends up going to beg Pommeraye for help, asking her to invite the Jonquières for dinner, but Pommeraye pretends she's tried and she's been turned down. Not willing to give up, Arcas confesses that during the walk in the park, he and the Jonquières' daughter share a few looks, making a connection. Pommeraye pretends not to believe him and reminds him devoted Catholics like them will never look at him twice, making Arcas want what he cannot have even more. Later, when Pommeraye shares her plan with Lucienne, she is proud to make fun of Arcas because he comes every day to ask if she's heard anything from the Jonquières. However, Lucienne thinks she's going too far over a heartbreak. Meanwhile, Arcas invites his old lovers to spend his time with them as a distraction, yet he can't bring himself to be with them because his mind can only think of Mademoiselle de Jonquières. Weeks pass with Arcas staying inside in a depressed state, and as soon as Pommeraye comes to visit him, he begs for at least a portrait of Mademoiselle de Jonquières so he can have more than a mere haunting memory. Pommeraye pretends to finally feel pity for him and arranges a dinner with both Jonquières ladies and Arcas, who shows up with humble manners. However, Pommeraye puts him on the spot by saying she's been discussing philosophy with the Jonquières and they'd like his opinion as well. Arcus actually doesn't know that much about philosophy. He's only learned a few quotes to impress women, but he manages to put together some weird ideas about passion that Mademoiselle de Jonquières pretends to be impressed by. After dinner, Pomeray takes the mother into another room to lend her some books, leaving Arcus and Mademoiselle de Jonquières alone on purpose. Arcus tries some more cheap philosophy on her, and Mademoiselle de Jonquières accepts it with only a word or two. After such a meeting, Arcus is even more determined to have Mademoiselle de Jonquières, so he hires a bunch of men to find her. These men search the entire town for the Jonquières ladies, and when one of them finds them in church, Arcus hires an artist to sketch the daughter while she's praying. He also waits outside the church until mass is done to follow the ladies to their house and learn their address. Then, he begins appearing in the area often, pretending to bump into them in the street by accident, but the ladies ignore him every time. Eventually, Arcus decides to pay off the priest, so he'll give Mademoiselle de Jonquières a letter from him under the excuse that she needs an honest man to protect her from the devil's temptations. When the ladies get the letter, they take it to Pomeray, who gets upset when she reads those heartfelt love declarations and throws the letter away. At least the plan is going well, and she orders the ladies to keep going to church, telling the priest the mother burned the letter without reading it. When hearing about this, Arcus gets even more desperate and asks Pomeray for help again, but she says no, reminding her that he can't have Mademoiselle de Jonquières just to fan the flames. Arcus decides to pay the ladies a visit in order to apologize for the inappropriate letter and give them two gifts, an envelope with money and a diamond necklace. Madame de Jonquières wants to accept the necklace since it could save her and her daughter's financial situation. But when she shows it to Pomeray, she orders her to turn it down because they can still get more out of this. She also makes Madame de Jonquières write a letter that Pomeray later gives Arcus and the ladies' names, telling him they had been very offended by his gesture and pretending to be mad at him for stalking them. Arcus begs for forgiveness on his knees, but Pomeray refuses to help him again. Thus Arcus decides to try with a bigger gift. The next time he visits the Jonquières, he brings even more money, the promise of 2 houses, and an entire set of diamonds. Madame de Jonquières is in tears when she brings all this to Pomeray, begging to be allowed to accept such amazing gifts, but Pomeray just makes her write another rejection letter. She swears there's a bigger reward to catch and they need to be patient, although Madame de Jonquières can't understand how the offerings can get any better. After giving Arcus the letter, which breaks his heart, Pomeray meets with Lucienne, who thinks Pomeray is starting to push Arcus into madness. However, Pomeray thinks she isn't quite done yet. 3 weeks later, a desperate Arcus approaches Pomeray to tell her he's willing to marry Mademoiselle de Jonquières if that's what it takes, and he needs Pomeray to help him with the negotiations. Pomeray pretends to show concern for him since he's never shown interest in marriage, but Arcus is determined. The plan is successful, and Arcus and Mademoiselle de Jonquières get engaged. The mother is incredibly happy, thinking Pomeray was right. Waiting did give them the biggest reward. The daughter, however, isn't comfortable with the idea of marrying a tricked man that doesn't know her full past. She can't get out of this plan without getting in trouble though, and the wedding goes without a hitch. After the ceremony, the mother gives Mademoiselle de Jonquières a little bottle of blood to put on the sheets, so Arcus believes this to be his wife's first time. Such a simple gesture makes the daughter cry, thinking this may be a punishment from God for having pretended they were his followers and entering church after having worked as courtesans. However, during their wedding night, Arcus notices how tense Mademoiselle de Jonquières is. Thinking she is afraid of having her first time, he promises to wait patiently until she's ready for him. Sometime later, Pomeray invites Arcus and the Jonquières to go for a ride, but instead of taking the carriage through the park as promised, they go to the local bawdy house. There, Pomeray reveals to Arcus the truth. His wife and mother-in-law had worked as courtesans in this place. The mother has a breakdown, but Mademoiselle de Jonquières is tired of lying and tells Arcus that it's all true. Pomeray confesses as well, laughing hard while explaining it had all been a trick, causing Arcus to run away. Mademoiselle de Jonquières tries to go after him, but he pushes her away, asking her not to speak or touch him again if she doesn't want consequences. Meanwhile, the mother asks Pomeray why she's betrayed them, threatening her with a broken bottle when Pomeray says not to worry because she'll pay them as promised. She doesn't understand that she's ruined 2 ladies' reputations, and now they'll never be able to return to noble life again. When night falls, Arcus walks the city streets while having to endure other lords and ladies' mockery over Pomeray's trick. When he returns home, he finds lots of people at the door. It turns out they found his wife in the river, where she jumped to end things, thus they rescued her and brought her over. Arcus gives them some money as a reward to get rid of him, then looks at Mademoiselle de Jonquières, deciding to leave her on the entrance floor and go on with his life. She's still the Lord's wife though, and the servants bring her inside. When some hours later, Mademoiselle de Jonquières finally wakes up, she tries to run away, but the servants stop her and take her to see Arcus, who has some things to say. His honor doesn't allow him to ignore his family, even if they've brought him shame, which means he'll allow them to keep his name and give them a house away from this mansion. He takes back all the bad things he said about Mademoiselle de Jonquières because he's had time to calm down, and now he understands she's just a pawn in an evil woman's trick, so he wants her to have freedom. However, Mademoiselle de Jonquières asks for at least the darkest corner in the house that a wife could have in order to redeem herself and show him how much she hated lying to him. Arcus can tell how honest she's being and forgives her for everything before accepting to keep her as his wife. Some days later, Lucien is in the city when he sees Arcus and Mademoiselle de Jonquière going away on a trip. Arcus explains to her that they're leaving to the country